Hello, my name is Shawna Nelson, and I am an AMS trained toddler Montessori guide. I work at the Discovery School. I'm a lead toddler teacher there in T2. And today I'm going to be speaking to you a little bit about inquiry through play and how we can support our children during this stay at home time. For those of you who don't know, the Discovery School is an international baccalaureate school. And what that means that IB is a worldwide nonprofit education program, and it was founded to give all students the opportunity to receive an education fit for a globalizing world. And as IB students, from primary to middle school, there are different learner profiles that we identify with, and one of them is called an inquirer. And as inquirers, we learn through to nurture our curiosity, we learn independently and collaboratively, and we learn with enthusiasm for all of our lives. And so IB recently sent out a document called Inquiry Through Play, and it's really applicable, I think, to the toddler program, even though it might be geared for a primary years program. So I created an abridged version of that information and added some of my own as well. So I'm going to be presenting that to you today. So. So, inquiry through play. What is play? Play just means to engage in an activity for enjoyment and recreation. In Montessori, we often use the language of direct aim, meaning what exactly is the child learning from this activity? So, play is an activity with no necessary direct aim, but with many indirect aims. Um, and so, children learn a great deal from play. Children learn many top down critical thinking skills through play. So, helps refine skills like planning and preparation. Play helps children research and discover information about their world. Play helps children master communication skills. It helps them feel socially connected and offers them freedom to explore scenarios in their imagination. Play also helps develop self management. Um, and while play contributes to all of these skills, they look different at each age. The thinking part of play might come from playing the game, right? Preparing all the materials needed for play. A colleague of mine just posted a photo recently where her daughters had taken every pillow out of their house and brought it to the living room and rearranged the entire room, really. And I want you as an adult to consider how long something like that would take for two young children to accomplish. Think about the collaboration that was involved. Um, Research in this context for an older child might involve actual research on the computer. But for a toddler, it can just look like exploring the relationship between ball and gravity. Toddlers are in an especially sensitive developmental period for developing language, and language is learning. So, the talking, singing, and even babbling you hear young children doing to themselves is adding to their body of knowledge about how to do language in the world. They're learning inflection and intonation. And even children who are playing alone are learning social skills. I've heard a few anecdotes recently about parents overhearing children in play with their dolls talking about the virus, saying, what if the baby gets coronavirus? And then will we go to the hospital? And what happens then? So I think children are offered a safe space in imaginary play to ask questions they might not necessarily feel comfortable asking you directly. And my favorite thing that children learn from play, especially free and independent play, but also other types, of course, is self management. I think for a toddler, you can imagine a scenario where they're in their playroom and they have a push toy that they need to get from one side of the room to the other, and they have to navigate through toys and furniture and things like that. And I just want you to consider as an adult that's a great deal of work for a young child to do. And it involves a lot of self management, it involves manipulation of their environment. And I think that that's really important work for a child to do. Um, so Ivy also said that there are 5 characteristics of play, which I think are also worth mentioning, and that play is meaningful. Children play to make sense of the world around them, to find and add meaning to their experience. So they connect it to things they already know or things they're curious about. Play is joyful. So, of course, it could have its frustrations and challenges. The overall feeling is one of enjoyment, motivation, thrill, and pleasure. Play is actively engaging. And I think this is really worth considering in the time we're in now, where all of our children are getting a lot more access to screens. And just consider screens a form of passive entertainment, while play is active engagement. Play can be physical, it's mental, it's verbal, it's many things. Another thing play is iterative, it's not static. Children play to practice and refine skills, try out possibilities, exercise curiosity. What's going to happen if play? The iteration of play adds to deeper learning for children. Again, play is socially interactive. Even when children are playing independently, there's still an element of social interaction during pretend play. But it allows children to communicate ideas and wants and needs. It also builds reciprocity. If you're playing with your child, there's turn taking involved. So I think that's really special. And again, I think even play that is independent can still have a social component. And there's a continuum of play. I think importantly for the toddler level, that we should focus on free, child led, guided play. I think we should be the observers, and the child should be in the driver's seat, mostly from the 0 to 3 level. And then there is guided play, child led, adult scaffolded, and direct. I think this continuum is useful as a framework that will provide you different levels of engagement needed from you, the adult. So, direct play would need a lot of engagement from you, and games will need a lot of engagement from you. But how can you support your child in play that is independent and child led? And a way to do that is to ask open ended questions. What do you think made this happen? What do you think will happen next? Oh, we just stacked this tower really high. Do you think it'll fall? Um, One of my favorite things to say in the classroom, instead of good job or I love it, is tell me more about this. What did you do? Oh, you used so much blue in this painting. What were you feeling when you painted that? That's so interesting. Um, if you do see your child and they're playing a social game, may I join you? Can I work with you today? Or what's the next step? And I think it's so important to allow children, especially if you're in that free play, to allow them to set the agenda and simply offer your presence and attention. Be an observer first and an active participant second. I think that's really huge. And I think that also aids our children in developing independence in their play and confidence. So this is one of my favorite quotes from Alison Gopnik. She is a child psychology professor at UC Berkeley. So children are the research and development team of the human species. She goes on to say that adults are production and marketing, and I think that's really wonderful just to consider. In that, so play is the child's way to conduct research and develop understanding and learning about their world. The child's brain is extremely plastic and it is very good for learning, but it's not necessarily so concerned about accomplishing, which is where we, the adults, live, right? We really want to have the task finished. For painting, we want to paint inside the lines and make it look like the picture shown. But children their brains aren't like that. They're concerned with learning, not the end goal. No, children are process over product. And I think it's worth mentioning that we have the longest childhood of any species. Children are concerned with learning and mastery, and their brains are built for it. So that's the work of play, I think, is really to help prepare them for the world. And so to continue, what does your child need to learn from play? What sort of things do you need? And here I'll start with things that they don't need. Your child does not need a home that's been recreated into a school, and I really want you to cut yourself some slack for that, especially if you're working from home, especially if this is, your first time in a home alone for a long time with your child. That's not what they need. So I also think they don't need new toys and materials. You don't need to fill your home with, Montessori sandpaper letters and things like that for them to gain knowledge, and for them to learn new things. And I also think now is a really great time to take inventory and observe your child, see what you have in your home, see what they're really interested in. I can almost guarantee you that there is something that your child engages with that if you were to try to pull them away from that activity, they would protest, whether it's trains, magnet tiles, cars, Play Doh, or art. I think at this point, especially during this lockdown where we can't get out, I think it's especially useful to consider what is that activity for my child and what way can I present that so it can become new and more appealing. If it's magnet tiles, maybe I will take and separate all the red ones and all the blue ones and all the green ones, and then see what they'll do if they come in the playroom and they just happen to all be parsed out that way. This is new. What do we do with that? So I think that's really wonderful to consider what your child is interested in already and cut yourself some slack and use that. Don't feel as if you need to create these Pinterest perfect activities all day, every day. Think about what you already have. Does your child need constant supervision and intervention? No, absolutely not. And in fact, I think we can train children to need our intervention and supervision during play by not being confident that organic play that they're engaging in on their own is enough. When we see children doing something unconventional that doesn't seem like work to us, and we interrupt them with something like, oh no, you're building that tower like that, it's going to fall down. Let me show you. We're sending the message that they don't know what they're doing, that we're not confident in them being alone with the materials that we've put out for them. And we're also going back to Alison Gopnik, like the child's brain is built for learning, not accomplishing. It's not important to them that that tower stands perfectly still. They're exploring gravity, they're exploring balance, they're exploring quantity, size, shape. There are many things that a child learns from building a tower that's going to fall over. And I think as adults, we can sort of create our own problem by a child who won't play alone, by interrupting them all the time. So be confident that the play that your child is engaging in is enough and will be meaningful to them and will serve them. Um, so things that you do need to learn from play, is an aware adult. And this is a beautiful concept in Montessori. And it just means that you're intimately and sensitively aware of the child in your care, their age and their developmental needs. For example, if you have a very high energy 2-year old boy and he has just sat very still for a very long breakfast, you should, as his caregiver, understand that maybe now isn't a great time for him to sit down with a peaceful artwork because he's just been sitting for a long time. It's your job to say, "Oh, maybe now we should go on a big walk," and then try that peaceful artwork, because we know that child and we know their needs. So being that aware and present adult, I think, is huge. You also need a safe space. A safe space will help children play independently without being needed from you. And you need age appropriate materials that will engage them. I think that is huge. And again, you don't need many of them. And consider the things that you have that your child enjoys. So now as a point, and during the live stream, I would have taken questions. And I've just put 2 prompts that I'm getting a lot that I think are related to this. My child won't play alone. What do I do? And will my child fall behind during this time? So I'm going to stop presenting and I'm going to just tackle those questions. So for the first one, my child won't play alone. They're always with me. And especially if you have an older or an only child, this can be especially challenging. I I am a big fan of the timer myself, and I also think it's helpful for a young child to begin together and then separate together. So, something that you could do is say, Mommy is going to go, I'm going to go and I'm going to unload the dishwasher. And you can play with your blocks or you can draw on your easel. And if I'm setting my child up to play alone and it's an early time, I'm going to choose things that won't require my intense supervision, right? So if a child's never had an easel and markers, that's a no-go, right? But something that you know your child has used before, they've had exposure to, and they're comfortable doing on their own. So I would say, you can do this or you can do that. And I'm going to set a timer and I'm going to be right here. I'm going to be in the kitchen. And so whenever I'm done, you can join. Whenever we hear the bell, we'll join each other. And we use the bell in the classroom for snack and things like that. So I think having a sound indicate, okay, now is the time reunite is totally appropriate. And if if it is an only child and you all are together all the time, don't think that this is gonna happen right away. I mean, that's it's kind of a detox that will probably have to happen. So maybe if you want to start doing this every day, you'd like your child to work alone for a few moments every day. Maybe on Monday you start with 4 minutes, and 4 minutes to a toddler is a pretty long time. And maybe on Friday you end with 7. There's a lot of things that you can get done in 7 minutes, I think. So I think that's one way to do it. And again, be very aware if you do have an only child and if they're very used to you, that this will be a slow process for them to join you or to work independently for a while. So and I think another thing you can consider and keep in mind for yourself is that not to interrupt them when they're engaged. You can really foster a lot of independence by hanging back and observing and not interrupting a child when they're engaged in something, even if it's something you feel like they can't possibly learn anything from. And again, don't I I urge you all to not frame learning in this narrow box of, they're not learning counting or they're not learning their letter sounds. Open that up for yourself and consider soft skills, consider social emotional skills, consider practical life skills of cleaning up after themselves. Consider the skill of patience, right? That is such a valuable lesson for all of, even adults need to learn that still. So don't have confidence in yourself and cut yourself some slack that just because they're out of school right now doesn't mean that they're not learning. And learning doesn't live at school. Learning doesn't live at in the teacher and me. It lives in the child. The child is the one who does the learning. And I think that's so special and so beautiful. And I hope I offer that to you as parents to give you peace of mind that they're still learning, and that's really special. Um, and then, will my child fall behind? I really don't think so. I really don't think so. And just as an anecdote, I want to say that there are seniors in high school right now who are missing their final calculus exams, who are missing their prom, and they're going to go on to lead very successful, happy lives. I'm very confident of that. So, your 2-year old, your 4-year old, your 7-year old who is out of school for these few months, I think they're going to be okay. And I actually hope that this is a really special time that we get to reset and we get to reframe some of the learning that we thought our child did in school. And we realize that the child is always learning. And in fact, they're built for it. So, and one of the best ways we can do that is provide an opportunity for them to play independently and with our support and with our presence. So, thank you so much. And if you have any questions, reach out. Have a great day. Thanks.